What's up, guys? It's day 7. I'm actually very excited to share Genesis chapter 22 through 24 with you guys because we get to actually see how faith is put into action even when it doesn't seem like it makes sense. So, jumping right into chapter 22, we're actually sometime later after Isaac's birth and all of the crazy oath stuff that was happening in the last chapter. And we're seeing Abraham is getting tested by God by having him sacrifice his son? Whoa, 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 whoa. I know. It sounds pretty crazy. It sounds like a lot is going on right here in this moment. You can imagine everything that's going through Abraham's mind and how he's thinking about, but God, didn't you give me Isaac for me to have the promised land, to have everything that you said I was going to be able to bless nations with? Now you want to take him away from me? And God makes it clear in these statements where he says, your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much. And God was like, yeah, this is what I mean. And we see right in verse 3, just like Abraham did before, he had no hesitation. And it's not like he didn't love his son. He cared for him and cherished him very much. He had him at 100 years old. Of course, he's going to cherish his son. It was just Abraham knew when God spoke and God told him to do something, he moved. And that's the kind of faith we all should have in God when it comes to God saying something or telling us to be obedient to him in a certain time and season. Man, we have to have the faith of Abraham. So this is about a 3 days journey for Abraham to get to Mount Moriah, where he has to eventually sacrifice his son Isaac. So Abraham tells his servants at the base of Mount Moriah, hey, we got to go a bit further off. We're going to go worship God and we're going to come right back. And this is where, it gets kind of crazy for Abraham because you can only imagine what's happening in his mind. Then in the next few verses, we see Isaac asking a little too many questions. Father, where's the lamb that we have for the sacrifice? And he's like, I don't know. Actually, he's like, God's going to provide the lamb, Isaac. Don't worry. And we know that he did through Jesus because he's the Lamb of God. And a lot of scholars actually attest and point that this is the same mountain on which Jesus was sacrificed. So God spared Abraham's son, but he couldn't spare his own. We see in verses 9 and 10 that it is such a gut wrenching and sad moment. If you ever seen any of the movies like His Only Son, man, this will make you cry. Just thinking about the fact that he was so close to literally having to kill his own son. And that's when the angel of the Lord appeared to him and was like, hey, I could see that you won't even hold your son back from me. That's how I know I can trust you with my covenant. That's why Abraham is called the grandfather of our faith, because he held it all down from the beginning when having faith in God didn't even make sense. You can imagine how much rejoicing was happening all the way home. Abraham must have been bouncing off the walls with excitement. And this is where we're reminded of Abraham's family back over there in Ur. And we see that Rebecca is now in this story. So now we're in chapter 23 where Sarah dies and Abraham is just trying to find a plot of land to be able to bury his wife. And so he goes to his neighbors, the Hittites, who are actually very generous and very hospitable to him and wanting to give him the best land possible in the best way possible. Most likely either because they knew he was rich and he was very well known, or just because they're very generous and peaceful people. Nonetheless, Abraham wanted to just buy off of Ephron his land. He just wanted to buy the cave. And that's where Ephron was like, hey, look, man, do what you got to do. What is this money between friends? Like we're just here discoursing and trying to, be here. And so he was doing all of this to upsell the the entire land. He wanted to sell him the field, the cave, the property, all the land. He wanted to give it to him, everything. And we see multiple times that Abraham bowed in humility to these Hittites. Like, he's like, I don't want you guys to look at me any better or worse than the next person. I want you to realize that I'm just as human as you guys and that I know I got the Lord on my side, but I'm really just trying to pay for this land. I want it to be mine. Like, I put in the sacrifice. Kind of like later on when his descendant David says, I would give nothing to the Lord unless I myself have given something to it. I have sacrificed my money, my time, whatever it may be. And so when Abram buys this plot of land from Ephron, he is now detaching himself from his descendants, ancestors, and literally saying that I am no longer part of the Ur of Chaldeans. I am in Canaan. This is God's promised land for my descendants and for what I know will be given to them. And so, like I said, Abraham paid in full 400 pieces of silver, which was a lot of money even today at this point. And he said, look, I pay everything I can just to be able to have that cave. And so he did. And that was all just for his wife. So now he has a new plot of land for him and all of his descendants to be able to utilize for their burials. And now here we are in chapter 24, which is probably the longest, if not one of the longest chapters in Genesis. This is the story of Abraham's servant going out to find a wife for his son Isaac. Abraham makes the servant swear an oath to him by putting his hand under his thigh, which was a symbol in their culture back then to literally mean like, yo, this is on your life that you got to do what I'm telling you to do. Isaac is not allowed to marry any Canaanite women, nor is he allowed to move back to the Ur of Chaldeans. And he has to marry somebody that is actually within his lineage, within his relatives. Abraham was so confident in God's plan that he said to his servant that the angel of the Lord will go with you and he will guide you and lead you for you to be successful in your mission. And so the servant is set on his way, traveling over 450 miles. It's like a 2-week trip. So you guys got to come to realize like, yo, we read these stories and like it's just a couple verses down, like the guys finally made it, but this is a 2-week long trip. We know that driving in a car is crazy. Imagine having to walk and ride camels the entire time. That's not the funnest thing to do. And so we see that this servant is very strategic when he finally gets to the land and he sets up his camels by the well at evening time, which is when the women would go out to get water. That's when he prays this special prayer that God will allow him to find the wife that was meant for Isaac. He says, let her be a woman who is generous by allowing me to drink from her jug after she's already pulled out water, and also to water all of my camels, which at that time was 10 camels. So this is like a prayer that a lot of God's people choose to do, not unlike Gideon's fleece, but in Gideon's case, he was doing it out of fear. Rather, this servant was asking God on behalf of faith. So he finds this beautiful woman named Rebecca, and she ends up giving him water to drink and all 10 of his camels to drink. Now, mind you, if you don't know this, camels can drink up to 21 gallons of water a day. And usually they'll drink about 15 gallons within a one sitting. So he had over 10 camels. 10 times 15, that's over 150 gallons of water. Now imagine, Rebecca had a 2.5 gallon jug. That must have taken her at least 60 trips of water just to make sure all the camels had something to drink. Mind you, this also happened at night, which the women were not shirked of any duties. They probably had a lot of work going throughout the day. Eventually, the servant finds out that she is Nahor and Milcah's granddaughter, which is actually Abraham's brother and sister-in-law. This is where he bows down to the Lord in worship, knowing that God has made him successful in his mission. He led him straight to Abraham's family. He was in disbelief at some point. He was like, yo, this is crazy. Like straight to the T of the prayer. This is how you know this was God's will in the whole plan. So he gave her some gifts. She ran back home and told everyone, and Laban, her brother, comes out to meet the servant, inviting him home. It says that he was looking at Rebecca's bracelets and the nose ring that the servant gave her. So it was most likely because he wanted to see how many gifts he can get out of the servant. And so the servant comes in the house and tells them all about the story of how he even came and how it was God's providence that he met Rebecca. So he was standing on business and said, look, next morning, if she says yes, we going. Rebecca says yes, and they went back on their way. This is where you see Rebecca and Isaac finally meet, and she becomes the comfort that he was looking for after seeing his mother, Sarah, died. And that's the end of chapter 24. Don't forget, I'm going to put the link in the description for the Bible in 1 year plan, while also linking my YouTube channel so you can see these videos in another form, just in case TikTok wants to get banned again. But if anything, I pray that you guys enjoyed. Have a blessed day. God bless you. And see you guys in the next one.